celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Yes, I'm recording a day early doing the program because there's a lot going on with me. The full-time commitment of mine at CannabisRadio.com. If you're in the South Florida area, I'm going to be hosting, or I'm going to be one of the people that will be helped to host the 420 Bud Bash coming up. That's 4/4/20. So that holiday being a cannabis holiday, I have to work. And I'm going to be out all day tomorrow. So for me to get a chance to go ahead and even finish up and work on doing the podcast, I'm going to probably miss Dynamite. I won't get to catch it live. I'll have to wait until later to catch it. And I don't want to wait till Thursday. I want to get the show in right now because the current topic that I want to get into, I can go and talk about right now. And that's AEW. There's a lot of people talking about their roster. They're all talking about the roster's bloated. They have a lot of talent on there. And that there are certain stars that are not getting as much exposure as others. And that some are being wasted, as they say. I want to come off and say this. Everybody expects AEW to follow like a certain trend, much like a WCW did. And I say don't do it, Tony Khan. I say AEW don't do what these other people are telling you to do. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the roster, yeah, they have a lot of names on that roster. And they could fill 6 hours worth of programming if they wanted to. I don't expect them to do that, and I don't want them to do that. They already got 4 hours, 3 hours in itself on regular television, on cable television. And they already do 2 hours already alone on Dark and Dark Elevation. That's a lot. 5 hours, they're filling it up. And they got more than enough talent to go ahead and complement every one of those shows. And they keep the shows very fresh. The ratings have not stayed steadily over 1 million viewers since they moved to TBS. So there's a lot of people being concerned about what's happening. And sure, the idea of many of my fellow podcast brethren out there is to just say, hey, let's go ahead and just put all these big stars up there and let's just start, stacking up the card with all these older names to try to boost ratings. Well, that's just what every other wrestling company does. But that's not what AEW needs to do. I mean, they need to go ahead and continue to keep their ratings steady, which they are. They also want to make sure that the relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery, this new merged company, is steady as well, which it sounds like it is. And to play through until they get to the next deal, hopefully, like even Dave Meltzer said, if there's another potential bidder for AEW programming coming up with the next broadcast deal, then hopefully that comes to be so that we can get something happening for AEW to get a better deal, to get more money coming in. But whatever ideas that some of these stars have, whether it's a Bully Ray, Tommy Dreamer of Unbusted Open, whether it's the Don Tonys of the world, the JD from New York's, the Fightful, Sean Ross Sapps, the Dave Meltzers, the Brian Alvarez's, the Wade Kellers, and all those people. Listen, I respect all these people greatly. Listen, you're all with bigger audiences than I do, and that's okay. But then again, I've been around to enjoy the underdog of every wrestling promotion out there. When it was ECW, when it was WCW at one point, and then became the top dog, and then, others. I mean, I do enjoy my underdogs on other promotions. MLW, NWA, Lucha Underground back in the day. I mean, I enjoyed Rinka King, all these different other promotions we had. And I enjoyed them all. And Impact Wrestling, of course, it's always been the underdog for forever. The lessons learned, and listen, everyone else is going to listen to Eric Bischoff in 96 weeks, right? Or 86 weeks. And thinking about, okay, he's going to be the voice of reason, or Booker T's the voice of reason, and all these others. And they're all thinking about ways of booking a wrestling program on television with the level of talent they have on AEW. And trying to get into Tony Khan's head. I'd rather let Tony Khan do what he's been doing. Has he been wrong so far in anything he's done? A couple of things. Sure, exploding barbed wire match. You're never going to live that up. The Satnam Singh debut, it recovered itself the next time around at Battle of the Belts. I mean, we could say some other stars that have come and gone, some that have been injured, some that we got some exposure with, and then has been out. And we can think of a lot of names that are in the roster, were around in the beginning, and then kind of got taken by the wayside afterwards because they're still under contract. And they might not be used regularly. I mean, listen, sure, Frankie Kazarian, always working on Dark. Hey, we look forward to it. He's good. They're always squash matches, but he's getting on TV. Do we ever consider what these wrestlers are doing themselves? Okay. Look, they're under contract. And some of their contracts most likely allow them to work other shows, but they're still getting some television exposure. So what is it? Too much that WWE does where we're tired and exhausted about the level of stars that we see every week on television? Looks like there's a little Cody fatigue right now. The ratings for Raw came in and they dropped back to normal levels. But that's also the WrestleMania hangover. It doesn't last that long. So now we're back to a certain level that we can expect. And even with some of the things they scheduled on, there were some gimmick things that they put on the show. The, Ezekiel's lie detector test, the double commitment ceremony. Those things might not have panned so well. Plus, when Cody Rhodes got his mystery opponent, it was going to be Kevin Owens. It's kind of a predictable mystery opponent. Looking at the storyline with Seth Rollins. And seeing those guys 3 times on TV doesn't help either. Or at least Seth Rollins 3 times on TV. Or 4 if you count them like coming out twice at the end of the night. AEW has a fresh look on everything. And they have, they don't put out so many different names on a regular basis. Like, really what they really do focus on are the pillars. Which is the point. We want younger stars. We want new stars. They're building stars. That's all that matters to me with Tony Khan. The other stars being brought in, believe it or not, they're going to be enhancement talent. Frankie Kazarian, for the credit of how well he's worked in his career and how well he's done, look, I get it. But you got to ask yourself the question, when you're looking at the stars we have, he's 44 years old. I mean, he can still go, but he's at the level right now where we see him in his illustrious career. The thing for him is that they've had him as a lead hunter. He's been in set storylines. He was part of SCU. Like, he was part of the very initial start of AEW. But now where we're at in his part of the career is, he's still being kept around. He's being noticed for what he needs to do in the meantime until he moves forward, which is great. But then after that, for certain people that are on and off, you can only expect so much. We're not going to expect Frankie Kazarian to come on a regular basis every week. And to have him on featured matches, well, they do some of that. But there's an obvious thing about certain stars they would definitely want to push forward, the younger stars. And they want to utilize the younger stars with the talent they have that are veterans to be used within. And so you can see the categories that are brought in. The fact that the Hardys were on AEW Dark this week and an 8-man tag really concerned some people. I'm like, okay. When you look at Dark Order, there's certain stars they have that are younger that are trying to build up. There are bar pillars that are coming on up. They're trying to build their own original stars. And their own original stars should have some priority. But that's not what these podcasters, my fellow podcasting brethren, want to go and believe. Because what I notice all the time when I watch Dark and Dark Elevation, a lot of younger stars, they keep building them up, squash. They give them wins and build up their records. And the same thing goes for the records of other stars within, which is good. But when you look at the names that you can absolutely see, the ones that get the most play right now, some will get a play once they debut, and then they kind of take back a little bit by the wayside. The Andrade El Hilos with the Andrade Family Office, the House of Black, right? And then you look at certain stars that will work their way up and then be brought back and taken away for a little bit. I like the fact that we see it, but we see what younger stars are working on, and they're trying to definitely work because they want to have, they're not going to do all these matches where they're going to have certain matches. We're going to have enhancement talent or veteran talent working with the younger stars and build them up, but they need to do the right thing by the younger stars and build them up and have a good mix of the older stars that can come into play, which they've been doing. I could go through the entire roster right now and just pick out names of among the 173 active members of AEW right now, according to SmackDownHotel.com. I could go through these names and focus on what they're doing at the moment. Realizing some stars might not be working on TV because they're hurt, or others are just certain bit parts and their assistants, or they're accompanying, other stars to the ring. But they all have a particular reason for what they're out there for. And is Tony Khan in control? So first, let me get into some of the stories that have been talked about now. So let's get into some of the stories that have talked specifically about what's happening right here. So there are rumors now, Fightful.com is talking about that WWE right now has expressed interest in bringing back FTR. Their contracts are due to expire this summer. AEW has a 1-year option that can be picked up, and that word should be coming soon if AEW plans on picking up the option. And FCW is beginning a bigger push on AEW TV as of late. They worked on Dynamite with the Young Bucks and got rave reviews. Many are calling their match with the Briscoes a contender for Match of the Year. And Harwood and Wheeler were asked if things were going well, but never ruled out a return to WWE, saying that Dax was asked if they would ever return. The response was yes, if the money and circumstances were right. So what they probably feel like, and Cody Rhodes returning to WWE is the gauge, because if they're going to feel like they're getting better respected, and that the chip on their shoulder has been, the chip on the shoulder has been worked out, and they can come back and say, hey, we worked here. Look at what we did since we were gone. No longer Revival, no longer doing the goofy stuff we were doing with the New Day, or the Usos, excuse me. Or no, the New Day, that's right. It was a New Day. Doing all that, maybe you're going to give us more respect. We're going to be taken more seriously for our wrestling craft. Now, will that work for FTR? That's the question. I don't know if it's going to. I think they're doing really well right now working where they are. Now, part of the thing could be is that they haven't had a chance to work in New Japan, which I don't know if they were going to be doing that or not, but they've been working AAA. They've been working for other organizations, and it's been great watching them out here working their stuff. I think FTR's done really great where they're working right now in AEW, and I'd like to see them stay. I think they have a whole lot of staying power here, staying with AEW. That's personally my way of looking at it. So there's that thought. But they have shot down the thought about AEW's roster being overcrowded, because we were also asked about that as well. Dallas Morning News spoke with them after the show on Friday in Garland, Texas, Curtis Colwell Center, after Dynamite. So one of the questions they're asked in the landscape of AEW, guys like yourselves who were in WWE and then came over to AEW as the years have gone on, more and more has shown up and the roster keeps expanding. Do you think AEW could be overcrowded with talent? And Dax said, quote, I think that Tony Khan's trying to assemble the greatest roster in the world. One of the greatest rosters he possibly can, because he wants to put out the greatest product he can. And anyone who complains about that, I'll say they're a fool. Because he's doing this, he spent a shit ton of money to bring back CM Punk. You think he did that for himself? Or do you think he did that for the enjoyment of the fans and he wanted the fans to be happy? I think it's the latter part. Yeah, it's easy to see all these guys from WWE are coming over. But the guys that are coming over are professional wrestlers. That's what we are. We're not WWE guys. We're professional wrestlers. I mean, God, I was barely making it. Same thing with Cash on the independent circuit, because we wanted to be successful professional wrestlers. And right now, we're still a brand new company, and Tony's trying to assemble the greatest roster he possibly can so fans can enjoy the greatest product they can. Dax is absolutely correct here. And that's what Tony Khan has done. He's accomplished that. Especially in the last year. Danielson, Moxley, Punk, bringing in Keith Lee, bringing in Adam Cole, Brody King, like just the amount of people he's brought on, Andre Malachi Black, the amount of star power he's brought into this company is incredible. He also says, and on top of that, I'll say it, I'm not worried about getting heat because nobody can kick my ass. If any of the wrestlers are upset because of all the guys coming in, well, step up. I want Tony to bring in every great tag team in the world right now because that's competition for me. And I want to show him, I want to show the millions of people around the world, we say it with all the humility going out of our bodies, there's nobody better than us. So I hope Tony keeps bringing in talent. I hope he brings in the greatest talent from around the world, because I want to sit that talent down and say, watch this, we're better than you are. Cash follows up and says he's got 2 rosters to fill. You got to keep in mind, he's got to fill 2 full rosters. But like Dax said, we're still in its infancy. When AEW started, they had to build from scratch. And you don't know who's going to work on TV, who's not going to work on TV, who the fans will accept and who they won't. So you just got to sign everybody and hope that after a couple of years, you've gotten a better read on everything, what's established and what isn't. These guys are in the company. They're doing well. They got the right mindset. And for every other podcaster out there to feel like that there's something wrong here, no. Moving along. Cash also says you can't plan for things that are completely unexpected. So some of these names that become available to him, he could have never foresaw that coming. None of us could. So when it was available, he will be a terrible businessman to not pursue that, because it's going to make his company better. It's going to make his talent better, because now they have another brain to pick. He's not signing schlubs, and he's absolutely right. These signings are not bad. You can say what you want about Paige Van Zant or Satnam Singh. They're strategic moves. They're just not people just to pick up. Because also, if he was just picking up everybody, well, why would there be control of your narrative? I mean, look at the stars that have already been picked up. From EC3 to Braun Strowman to, Wesley Blake and all these other stars that came in. He's picked up some great talent out of all of them. There's nobody I've felt like he's brought on that has necessarily been up that has been bad. I don't think so at all. He's signing people that can help. A lot of the talent we have right now are very young talent. They don't need to be exposed every week to TV to make those mistakes. They need the YouTube shows. They need some independent shows. They need some Ring of Honor shows that might not be on TBS in front of 1 million people or more. They need the exposure before they earn that right to be on AEW television. Absolutely correct. This is like, I don't even have to speak. Dax and Cash are speaking perfectly for me. They're relaying my sentiment whatsoever. Exactly correct. And I don't know if a lot of wrestling fans are hearing this right here, but you're hearing it from me. He's got some young talent that needs to get seasoning on and grow. He's got established out that he's finally getting what he needs, where he needs. And it's going to weed itself out over time. There's going to be contracts that aren't renewed, and that's okay. He's honoring the contract still. They don't need to be told anything other than, we're not renewing. We're journeymen. We go from one place to the other, and if it doesn't work out, but if you want it bad enough, you'll get an opportunity somewhere. Another opportunity. You just have to go out and get it. Then Dax goes on and says, if you're building a franchise, a sports franchise, and you have all these young players who have never played on a mainstream outlet such as AEW, they all played on these small independent shows. They've never been on national TV. Why in the hell wouldn't you hire the Hardy Boys or Sting or CM Punk or Bryan Danielson or John Moxley or FTR? Why wouldn't you hire them to help them teach TV wrestling? They understand professional wrestling to an extent. They understand athletics. But man, you've got this knowledge of guys who worked decades on television, and we could pass that knowledge to them. So when Sting and Moxley and all these guys decide it's time to hang it up, you got these guys now primed and ready to go, which is what WWE has not done. Look to the future. And by the way, we know there's some stars that might be in AEW that will get picked up to other organizations down the line. And other organizations will benefit from what AEW is doing now. They are the best place above every other wrestling promotion right now, enhancing, procuring, and developing new wrestling talent. They're the ones. They're doing it all. And they don't even have the developmental territory. We don't even know what Ring of Honor is going to be, but I feel like it's going to be something to that extent of what they're going to do with that show. So to bring all these guys, and while they're not working all the time, if they're getting paid and they're working dates, well, that's a great thing. And if they're able to work other events, because they have exclusivity to be able to go and work other events that they want to, a GCW or, big time wrestling or wherever they want to work, they could do that. And then Cash says, I think it's also a mindset of a younger generation. Just because we came up at a time where you had to be a little more patient. You didn't get things as sudden, and now people are having their first ever match on live TV. They're debuting on live TV. They're getting signed within a year of starting wrestling. It's not their fault. They just don't know any better. But it's me, now. So somebody like Adam Cole gets signed. Well, there goes my TV time. Not really. There goes your TV time. If you want it and you're good enough, you're going to get it. You just have to keep grinding. If it doesn't happen right away, that's okay. Just keep grinding because eventually the cream always rises. If you're good enough, it's going to show itself. Patience is something that's a virtue and it's been lost. I will say this for a fact. Of the talent they've been building up right now, of the younger stars they have in that company, there are some stars that are definitely green and will need to work their way up. And there are some stars that are young that are getting built up. Remember, we don't know, and most of these people, I'll tell you, I don't even remember seeing before AEW. MJF to a point on MLW working with the Dynasty. But, I mean, I look at other stars. We never saw the Gunn brothers, Austin and Colton. I never saw them before. I never got to see Aaron Solo or Alan Angels or Alex Reynolds or see Darby Allin. I never got to see him work. I mean, there's a lot of stars coming in. We just never get a chance to see. Some I did a little bit here and there, but really the exposure we're getting from all of them is important. Just because they're not on TV every single week, look, I'm sure they want to wrestle. And maybe they're still getting a chance to wrestle in other places. But let's see where they go with things. I'm really happy with where they're going right now. So FTR, very vocal on this. And Arn Anderson also spoke about this. The talent that's bringing from TV is a dilemma AEW has. This was said a few weeks ago, and Cage Side Seats report on it. And on his podcast, he said there was an issue that Tony Khan's brain trust is aware of. Quote, I agree 100%. My son Brock being one of those. If you remember correctly, his debut match was being partnered with Cody. They had a really good match with QT and one of the other kids, but it's been so far back, nobody remembers it. He had us 3 or 4 weeks. Arn Anderson understands, he says, what TK's trying to do and supports it. The Hall of Famer also recognizes you can't pass up signing big-name stars when they come available. This is what happens when you do. But he still thinks they need to figure out this issue so it doesn't derail younger wrestlers. He says now to his defense, because people get sick of me singing Tony Khan's praises. But his intention is because now he's assembled quite a hell of a talent roster to try to get everybody exposed. If you get 1 week or 2 weeks and then they move on, I get exactly what you're saying. In order to get a person over, you have to have about 8 to 10 to 12 weeks straight of good TV. Now, I'm invested in this guy. Tony knows what he wants out of the shows. We support him 100%. I do agree that talent doesn't get exposed. Dante Martin's a very special kid. He's got springs like nobody else in the business. Just a short time back, he had 2 or 3 or 4 really good weeks, and now he just disappeared down the dark. It's a dilemma that we have. We will figure it out. But when you're bringing in Daniel Bryan, you're bringing in CM Punk, and no matter what you've done prior to that, that's going to kind of push everybody down a notch because those guys cost a heap of money to employ. When you bring them in, they're going to take precedence over everything else you had going on. That's the dilemma we have. We will figure it out because Tony's intentions are giving people who are avid wrestling fans and intelligent folks what they want. Bam. And the Ring of Honor quotient has not been considered yet. We don't know what Ring of Honor is going to be. They're still working on trying to get a TV show. We saw their first Supercard of Honor. It was fantastic. A good mix of talent. And they're still trying to incorporate the Ring of Honor talent right now and something of Ring of Honor to keep that brand in the atmosphere, in the environment of wrestling until the Ring of Honor deal gets put in where he has a TV show to put him on, whether it's on YouTube or somewhere else. But we have to wait on that. So he's got a lot of things that come in. He's taken the opportunity of getting the talent before they went somewhere else. Great. He's doing the right thing. And he still has the option to do that because there are certain stars that could go, they were former WWE talents that got let go from a massive amount of future endeavors. And some of those stars are not going to go anywhere else. What are they going to go to? For a smaller deal at Impact, NWA, MLW, or wherever there is. Sure, Karrion Kross could have been picked up by AEW, but he wasn't. He's now in MLW, and he's working other shows. And you look at, like Taya Valkyrie, was in NXT, didn't go back to Impact, but she is going to work Impact anyway. She will go after Deonna Purrazzo this week at Rebellion. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So you got that going for you. So the talk has been out there about it, but not that much. Not as much as you think. So one other story I want to bring up before we move along into the breakdown of the agenda that's going on with AEW. Comicbook.com talking about how Triple H discussed what was going on when it comes to the company. And he gave an interview with The Athletic, and I was asked about wrestlers who made the jump to the promotion once competing head-to-head with NXT on Wednesday nights. Quote, I like all those guys. They helped us get to where we needed to get, and I'm thankful for it. The truth is, there was a period of time where we were trying to build NXT. We built NXT. Then we were trying to build a brand that could get a TV show and sustain it. All those names helped us get there. Whether anybody believed it or not, they fit on Raw or SmackDown. Those aren't necessarily my decisions solely. They're only Vince's decisions and fans' decisions, and then we could continue to do business with them. If they have great gigs, I'm happy for them. I stay in touch with most all of them. I like to think they came into us here. We taught them a lot, got them to a higher level where they learned how to do television, how to be professionals, and how all that to be successful there. At some point, they might come back with us, or they might never because they don't fit our brand as well, but that's okay. They got us to certain places, and I'm thankful for that. And they're thankful for that. They're off on to different things. But it doesn't stop the train. People leave football teams, move to different teams all the time, and it's great. He's talking about the competition of AEW and what that is. But that's the part that we're looking at as well. By the way, Kushida has left NXT and WWE altogether, and now he's a free agent coming up very soon. Thought that was one thing we should make a mention of. Now, when you look at the roster itself, and you look at the stories that come up to it, I mean, I can go through the roster now, and I can pick out what they're doing and and really just pick out the storylines they're trying to do, what they're trying to do with these stars to do something with them. Let's go into some of them. All right. So we know the top, Adam Cole, Adam Page. That's your world title pictures you've had for a while. And Adam Cole is put to the spot. Now, where does he go from here now that he's taken another loss to Adam Page? I mean, he goes into the upper mid-card level, but the mid-card is loaded with a lot of different things you could do. In AEW, you can have sustainable feuds that matter. We've seen that pretty clear with what they're doing right now with, when they were doing your Red Dragon and Young Bucks. You could say it with, right now with Andrade El Idolo and the Andrade family office against the Hardys. You could see that as well. You could talk about Eddie Kingston, Santana Ortiz going after the Jericho Appreciation Society. All of that. And we can go through among other stars that are out there that are doing their own they're doing their own feuds, but everybody's kind of working on something or getting something done. So if I look across the top, and I say, okay, when I'm just looking at the stars that I know that are on Dynamite on a regular basis, or a Rampage on a regular basis, I'm not talking about any of the stars that are on Dark. Like, I'll point out the ones that are in Dark, and I'll make a moment about them, but we're going to go through quickly. So they're in Solo. He's definitely somebody they're looking at through Dark, and they're trying to build him up along with Camarado, doing something with him, and QT Marshall, but it's a lot of work before he gets somewhere. Al Angels is one of those stars, along with Alex Reynolds and John Silver, among the Dark Order being built up. When you have also some older stars like a Colt Cabana, they're also coming out to the ring for the Dark Order. Angelo Parker working with the former 2.0 and now working with the Jazz, if you want to call it that. Anthony Bones with Max Caster and the Acclaimed. That's a strong tag team on the way up. There's a lot of strong young tag teams that are out there working their way to something somewhere. And I think they do a pretty good job of trying to keep them pretty engaged. With the Acclaimed, they did have them working with different stars. When it comes to Sting and Darby Allin, giving them a title shot, things like that. Anthony Ogogo is somebody they're trying to work on now. But, boxer turning wrestler, that's going to take some time for him. You got the Gun Club, which are getting quite a bit of time on Dark. They're always on Dark. But then also have some time to get out on Dynamite and Rampage, which is good. The Bear Country, that's another team that we don't know where they're going to go with things, but it's another young team being built up. And sometimes you just need to see this many stars with time. Really, if you want to enjoy AEW to its fullest extent, you have to watch Dark and Dark Elevation. They are must-see shows. They're not throwaway shows. There is a purpose for Dark and Dark Elevation. They give it a good treatment. I mean, even with Dark, if it's being done for Universal Studios, they get a good presentation. It's not WCW Saturday Night. I mean, you're getting squash matches, but you're getting quality matches. Like, you're not just getting these glorified squash matches just to fill time. Instead, you're getting lots of squash matches quickly. You're getting to see the work rate. You're getting to see them out in the ring. You're seeing some of your favorite stars out there to be noticed. And there's a lost art about doing those type of matches on television. It used to be on every TV show when they were doing it for the studios back in the day. Billy Gunn, in his role accompanying his sons out to the ring, is a solid setup. The Gun Club is a great setup, and I like the Gunn brothers. I like them a lot. I think that's a great tag team in the move. Bobby Fish, we're going with Kyle O'Reilly and the Red Dragon. They're out there, and they're working a lot. And their work with Young Bucks and that arc storyline with them, among other stars they have to work and deal with, I have no problem with what they're doing right now with that. Brian Cage looks like he might be more of a fixture on Ring of Honor down the line. Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, we might not see them so much on TV. And Julia Hart is probably now spotlighting over the both of them, but Brian Pillman's had some time to shine. He did get some chance to work with MJF, and that was good. And now they have the thing where Julia Hart, they've kind of continued to, not necessarily keep that storyline fresh all the time, but they've always revisited it, where Julia Hart's now walking away from the Varsity Blondes. And where are they going to go from there? Brock Anderson, it's going to take time for him to move up as well, but he's looking really good. And just give them time. Like, you just can't throw these guys on TV and put them on Dynamite and Rampage where they have something where there's not an established team or a gimmick or something like that that's going to really stand out. But their work rate's great. So, like, the great workers, keep them working. Like, Brock Anderson needs to get time to work matches, and he's been doing it. Brody King with Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black. These guys are working other shows, I'm pretty sure. I don't have no doubt with that. Plus, when they're working on here with House of Black, they are getting put into storylines and will need to be brought up into a arc of storyline, into a feud, into a program. They'll be brought up. But I think there's a lot of guys that are in programs that will be brought into the program and then out. And they're not going to just stay consistently in programs. They're going to take time, come back down, come back up, and that's what they do. For the most part, even with the fact we have attachments with Dark Order or the Pinnacle or Inner Circle before they broke up, like they were never always together all the time unless it was part of a program. What Tony was doing. CM Punk we don't see every single week, and it's nice to not see him every single week because at his point, he already had a long feud with MJF leading up to the Revolution. Excuse me, I get those two shows confused. So that's done, and now MJF moved on to his other story with Wardlow to build off of that. And CM Punk is continuing to work. He's just working other opponents. I don't have a problem with him working with Penta Oscuro or working with, Dustin Rhodes or things like that and just being out there. Because there's also things that CM Punk's probably doing behind the scenes that also help a lot. He doesn't have to be in ring all the time. That's okay, too. FTR gets quite a bit of time on TV. I feel good about them when they're out there. Cesar Bononi, Wingman, they get out there, and there might be some guys that might hold on, and there are some stars that should feel okay being jobbers or just being, working in the system and getting the occasional TV shots on Dark and Dark Elevation. That's okay, too. You need those stars to be in. What FTR said in the Dallas Morning News is absolutely right. Like, there's a lot of stars that might not get there every single week, but you also want to make sure that with Dark and Dark Elevation, you're giving them TV time. You're giving them work time. You're getting them time to be on television and get them comfortable behind the camera, get themselves comfortable to be working on TV on a regular basis. And some stars need to work with more than there would be others because some are just a good enhancement talent, and others are just talent that you want to just have out there because they have a resonating difference. Like when I see the Bunny or I see Sky Blue or I see Julia Hart or if I see Ruby Soho. Yeah, Ruby Soho not being on regular TV all the time on Dynamite or Rampage, that's okay too. Jericho is out there a lot, but also working on commentary. Like that's, he's a fixture that wants to be on TV, and obviously they see a thing where him being on TV is very important. Christian Cage might not be working a lot of matches, but he's still out there accompanying Jurassic Express. He's been out there enough into the picture, and the truth is Christian Cage will eventually turn heel on Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and they'll have to spin off of that. But in the case right now, you don't want to have Christian Cage always involved when, the tag team champions are defending their belts. It doesn't have to be intertwined because there's not time within the storyline to bring Christian Cage into the conversation. Chuck Taylor, I believe, is injured. Or if he's back, I forget. But there's been a lot of things where Best Friends has not been out there because Orange Cassidy's hurt. So that faction's kind of been taken a little bit by the wayside. And Wheeler Yuta went away to Blackpool Combat Club, and he's growing a lot. And that's become where Wheeler Yuta now was part of that young crop in Best Friends of the younger talent working along a group of veterans. But now, Orange Cassidy, until he gets back, is an established pillar, a young star right now that's already been on the rise, has been a made man in that company. And Wheeler Yuta is now becoming a made man now, moving away from Best Friends to the Blackpool Combat Club. And now his stock is rising a lot. Of everybody out there, Wheeler Yuta, his stock is rising huge. And it's great because he is excellent. Then we go on to Daniel Garcia. His move with the Jericho Appreciation Society and now the Sports Entertainers thing, that works really well. It's the right move here. Daniel Garcia is going to get over. And him and Dante Martin, I feel like are kind of both in the same, kind of in that same mold. But Daniel Garcia right now, and this move along with 2.0 is the right move for them. Like I like them together here to build them up. So that's the right move to bring them together in that group. And it's already been proven Jericho is good at helping get the other talent up and elevated. He's been effective at that. Dante and Darius Martin, now that Top Flight's together, and Dante Martin had a great singles run going on. And he was actually consistently, he was working some matches over on Dynamite and Rampage, but then you had the part where he got a lot of work on Dark and Dark Elevation. Those guys get a lot of work all the time. They're just a solid tag team. And now that you get those guys that continue to have their chemistry, work themselves together, it's those type of tag teams like them and the Acclaimed that you're going to just see so much of. And then where you work in tag teams, where if you want to have tournaments, if you want to have other things that are going on to help build things up, they have so many different choices to work from. That's the whole thing. Tony Khan has such a menu of options to work off of. And remember, he has to have enough to work on television with for a long time. That's a lot of shows to fill. And so if he wants to give some breaks to some of the stars he has the talent to do that. He can give stars a break and then bring other stars up. That's a great thing to have. This is something that WWE never does. But he also knows that this is the opportunity to go ahead and take all this talent in one shot and see what happens with them. Because we should know for sure that some of this talent's not going to stay here and stick for long. There's going to be some stars that are going to get dropped off for being laid out. Jack Evans already says he's not going to renew. And there'll be other stars that will do the same thing. Some other stars will go. And we're going to have to expect the fact that there's not going to be that Cody Rhodes will not be the only person that leaves AEW to another promotion. It's going to keep happening. There will be other stars that will leave. But I think he's trying to do the best he can to try to keep everybody involved and engaged. And they're giving a purpose for a lot of the stars he has based on what Tony Khan's vision is. So then I look, okay, Dustin Rhodes, but he's doing a lot of training. And so just to get him an occasional match here and there, that's great. Eddie Kingston is a star right now, and they put him out there front and center on a lot of different things. He's been kept out, even when he was injured. Everything he worked with Moxley, everything he did with Jericho, and continue to do with Jericho, it's great stuff. Eddie Kingston right now, we're seeing him a lot. He's getting the right amount of exposure on TV on a regular basis. Ethan Page coming up with Dan Lambert and Scorpio Sky. Yes, I think the same way there too. Men of the Year is a great tag team, and they're working really well together. They're all out there. They're consistently out there on a regular basis. I mean, sure, Ethan Page not going to get not to wrestle as much as one thing, but I'm fine with it because he's a good talker. He gets time to be out there, and he's doing his thing. Now, Fuego del Sol gets a lot of time on TV, but he's mostly a dark guy. Griff Garrison, same thing. Hook, I like that they don't bring him out all the time, but they haven't really done so much with him. They're just sprinkling him along. But he's a young star. You're going to build him up. And this mystery of him, the thing with Danhausen and his curses not working against him, that's all working too. Private Party, I think they've done really good with. They also don't need to be overexposed either. I love the fact that the Hardy family office got switched out and everything happened like it did, so that Andrade now runs Private Party. But Private Party is still solid. And, you know, they need time still. Like, look, we know how well they are on the indies and how well they've worked out there in general. They're consistently good. But this is the part, too, where, like, some of these younger stars, it's going to take time for them to build the depth that they need to be so over, not just for their work rate, but for something more. That's what needs to happen as well. When it comes to Top Flight, when it comes to the Acclaim, there has to be something more, another dimension to them, and that's going to take time to build. Plus the time they've been out there, and they're constantly on TV. Maybe not there every second of every hour of every day, but they're out there. They're recognizable. They're noticeable. Then you work their way through. So Hook, I like what they're doing with him now. He's not there all the time, but he's getting a certain exposure, and he's been sprinkled along. I think he's been a great project, what they've done with him so far. Feels like the next Goldberg, and he's not even that big. So then we move along. A couple more dark stars with JD Drake, Jack Evans, and Jake Atlas. Jake Atlas got hurt in his first match. Jake Hager as the tough in the Jericho Appreciation Society. I like the role there. Jay Lethal, they're giving him purpose now because the Ring of Honor stuff's going on. Him and Gresham, Satnam Singh. It just took some time to find out, okay, Jay Lethal was brought in, had a couple of matches, then he was cooled off a bit. Now he's back into the picture. He was working with Sonny Kiss, tagging with him on Dark. And then he was doing some of their matches there. But then they found something for Jay Lethal to do. Him and Sanjay Dutt, they brought in Satnam Singh. I'm like, oh, here's a project. Jay, work with him. Okay, here we go. Jay White has not been on the roster here because he's mostly been on Impact. And he's been working over there in New Japan, so he's just fine. So Joey Janela is no longer on the roster. Moxley and his work right now with Danielson and Wheeler Yuta, with William Regal. Blackpool Combat Club doesn't have to be on there every single week, but they're on there pretty consistently, and it's effective. It's the right thing to do with them. Gresham, Ring of Honor World Champion, a little bit of exposure here and there, but he doesn't have to be on that much either because it's Ring of Honor. They have to find a place where they can get him on a regular basis. As match with Dalton Castle, Battle of the Belts, fantastic. Jungle Boy with Luchasaurus has worked well, and just down the line where Jungle Boy will come off as a single star, and he will be a big star in the making, but still so young in the business. You can wait a little bit for some of these guys, a few more years of season to keep them up there, but they're up there at the very top right now. Like, you can't ask for better for Jungle Boy right now where he's at. Khan, but mostly he's Ring of Honor. Keith Lee, you know, they kept him pretty consistently up where the top. Him with Shane Strickland. Those guys will also probably take a little bit of a back seat pretty soon, but they're there unless they find a program or something for them to do. Because you don't have to necessarily have the program for them to do anyway unless you find something that works where your roster that you have and available pieces you have to work something with. So Kenny Omega, Kip Sabian, both on the shelf. Lance Archer, you know, they've worked on trying to rework his character. They did the whole Murder Hawk Monster thing. They did give him a title shot. He was TNT champion, right? And so he's had his time there. I don't know what happens to Lance Archer next, but he's been consistently kept strong on Dark. He comes on there. He has this gimmick down pat. Doesn't have anybody else working with him, but he's done very well. The Texas Death Match with Adam Page was fantastic. But yeah, him, Miro, they might not be on there all the time, but I like the fact that's going on as well. Lee Johnson gets out there with Brock Anderson, and that's pretty good together. Lee Moriarty working with Ring of Honor, having the deal right now with Jay Lethal. That's another person into the unguent of this arc storyline they're doing right now. Luther and Chaos Project consistently out there. MJF, even with MJF, who you could put out there on a regular basis every week, you do on Dynamite. He is pretty consistently on Dynamite, but that's also because MJF has so many different storylines to work off of. when it comes to his deal with CM Punk, when it comes to the deal with, a little bit of a falling out with FTR and the and the Pinnacle kind of having a rift, or Wardlow, like all that. There's a whole lot of different pieces that MJF is now a nucleus to. Malachi Black, I think it's just a program they're waiting to get with somebody, and they've used them. They've been effective. They've left ramifications on a number of stars, including Pac and Julia Hart, among others. Mark Sterling, I like where he's been moved here. Now he has not just Jade Cargill, but now he has Tony Nese. So Tony Nese now has a purpose here. Let's see what they do with him. Matt and Nick, Young Bucks, their work with what they're doing with Red Dragon, among other stars that are out there. Young Bucks as they're needed, but again, they're behind the scenes. There's a lot that they're working on as well. And then I move down the line. Let's see, okay, Santana Ortiz, Kenny Kingston, they're actively in storyline in a good amount of way. Pac in the same way, but, him and Penta, and I think what's going to happen too is the trios are definitely a thing they're dealing with right now, where the trios matches they do quite a bit of, but they also have to have the time for it. And they like doing trios matches on a regular basis on any one of these shows. But when there's one member of the roster that's not there, so like for instance for Pac and Penta Oscuro to not have Phoenix out there, that takes away from what they're going to do. Look at Powerhouse Hobbs, and when you look at what they're doing with him when it comes to the whole thing with Team Taz, and now they have him with Keith Lee and that whole mess with it. Great storyline. That's a program to work off of. They can always revisit. They don't have to make it every week. It doesn't have to. They can always find a way to go and bring the heat back up on a regular basis with some of these stars. Ricky Starks consistently out there. He's been pushed really well. Rocky Romero. But Rocky Romero's a journeyman working everywhere. Like I saw him, what was it? He was on Impact. He was on, what was he? He was on Impact. I think I've seen him on MLW, and I've seen him on AEW in various forms, or Ring of Honor in various forms. So like he just is all over the place. Sammy Guevara, much like MJF, booked solid. He's such a star now. I mean, when you look at what Cody's done, the work he's done with Cody, the work he's done with Chris Jericho, and everything that's happened, like Sammy Guevara is a star right now and built up so well. Samoa Joe, he's currently in storyline with the Satnam Singh storyline, and he might get cooled off, or he might go to Ring of Honor. We don't know what's going to happen with him either, but he's in there right now. He's in the picture. He's in the mix. Scorpio Sky, current TNT champion, even he was always a little bit on the back burner sometimes, but kept working on Dark, and he's an example of a star that might have been cooled off a bit and might not have been on TV so much, especially after SCU was disbanded. But he still is so important to what they're doing. Very important to what they're doing right now. Captain Sean Dean, you see him out there. He got a win over MJF, or he got a win over the chairman, Sean Spears. And Sean Spears, I don't know what happens with him, but he's been serviceable in a lot of different things. They did try to throw him off as a chairman. He's been a little more of a use now in the Pinnacle more than anything else. Sonny Kiss, I mean, you could say a lot of things, but I think it's just that Sonny Kiss is still also a younger star in the same way Joey Janela worked together. But Sonny Kiss, they had him on early on Dynamite, and then it's just at the moment just kind of took a little bit away, and just not been the focus right now. And I don't know. I think it's also where Sonny Kiss, you want to develop that character, the flamboyance, the whole style. There's something more to Sonny Kiss you could do to build that star up. I look at Sonny Kiss and I think of Nyla Rose in the same way, where Nyla Rose, you brought her out there as Native Beast, but then you added the Vicky Guerrero component and then just built up from there, and it worked out right. Sting, we don't have to see him every week. You don't have to wrestle every week. He's 63 years old. But Darby Allin's been out there, not as super consistent, but then again, he works. I know he works other shows and things like that, but it's like he is doing great work right now for them. And maybe not out there as much as an MJF or Sammy Guevara, but he's definitely out there. And he has a definite presence, and he's definitely over every time he comes out. But it's also one of those things where I don't want to see certain stars be overexposed so much where they overstay their welcome. And it's like, because AEW fans have already been programmed to not see certain stars every single episode, every single week. I think that's a great thing. So Swerve Strickland now, he's brought into the mix. What do we do with him? Butcher and Blade continue to be put in the storylines. Their whole attachment to the Andrade family office. The factions also help to get some exposure to some of these stars because they're always coming out accompanying out there. It's not like where you saw sometimes the NWO where not all the members would come out. Like every time you see certain stars come out, their accompanying entourage comes out with them for the most part and might offer some plunder or something else going on outside when you look at what Dr. Britt Baker does. You know, I mean, it's those things right there. And that's pretty much the whole setup right now. Wardlow also being booked really solid right now. It's good. I mean, he's being built as another pillar. And even by not having him out there wrestling so much and having him off the official roster, it's been really good so far for them. So I really like that all together. So that's on the men's side. The women's side, a little bit different. Not as big of the roster on the women's side, but there are some good stars here. But there also is a lot of stars they have to work on building up. AQA, they had her in here, and her, Abaddon, they're going to take some time to go ahead and seize it up. Anna Jay's been out there, and she's had points where she's been off and on, but she accompanies out the Dark Order, so there's that with her. Diamante, who's just been a long-standing star that's been out there for a long time, working in the company. She's out there been so consistent. The fact that her and Kiera Hogan are working together in the same company, and they're also working other promotions, listen, they're doing just fine. Dr. Britt Baker, they made it a point that after she lost the belt to Thunder Rosa in San Antonio, she's not coming back out until she goes to Pittsburgh, which they're going to be visiting now. That's great news with what they're doing on that story. Emi Sakura, if you want to watch, she's always on Dark Elevation. On Dark Elevation all the time. All the time. Hikaru Shida, you see her quite a bit as well. She's doing really great stuff. Jade Cargill, the TBS champion, excuse me. And you don't have to have her out there every week either. Listen, for the Bully Rays of the world saying, let's get all these titles defended all the time. No, there's just so many other things they got to work on. They don't have to have titles defended every time. And for the TV titles, they're getting defended. Maybe not as much as you might think they should, but I think they're being defended pretty well. Like you might see some stars that are getting put out there every other week or maybe like once or twice a month defending those belts. Like you're seeing it out there. Jamie Hayter consistently out there working now with Tony Storm. That whole setup's good. Tony Storm might not have been out there all the time, but that's also going to happen too. Much like how Ruby Soho's out there. Chris Statlander, they just redid her gimmick right now, and she's getting out there, and she's gotten some time to be out in the ring. And they continue the story with her and Layla Hirsch, which you've even put on Rampage before. Marina Shafir, they just started with her. They're doing promos for her. They're starting to build her back up in the mix. Nyla Rose consistently up there at the top. And been a lot of work with her going on. Penelope Ford's hurt. Paige Van Zant's been getting out there quite a bit. Red Velvet, they continue to keep pushing. And they'll put her in matches, but she needs time to get herself better too. Riho, she's already been champion before. And when she gets a chance to go and work out from Japan and come back over to the States and work, she does. And she's great out there. Serena Deeb and her thing with Hikaru Shida, you can always come back to that anytime you want. Like, that's one thing that's going to be said about where Tony Khan has certain matches in his back pocket. If he has to fill the slot with a good match, that's not just going to be a throwaway match. He has lots of them. Lots of matches he could go to in his disposal because they've built many storylines or many beefs with certain stars that he can always go back to and tap into and say, okay, we're going to bring this match up now. Because there's not going to be most matches are never going to be just throw together matches at the last second. Sometimes they are, like we saw that with Pento Oscuro and CM Punk, but still, for the most part, we're still getting matches scheduled way ahead of time. We know where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing, and he plans ahead. And we know what his pay-per-views are going to be. And listen, does he disappoint with those pay-per-views? No. And how often does he really disappoint with Dynamite? He doesn't. With Rampage, neither. He doesn't disappoint much at all. Ty Conti, now they have her attached with Sammy Guevara, that whole setup. Sky Blue, I mean, she's getting better, and she's cute to look at, and she's really, it's good to see her in trios action. Another match that she does out there, tag team action. She's good. The Bunny consistently has been out there working a lot. She's, of all the women, I think she's out there more than all of them. When I look at all the times I watch on Dark, she's always out there bouncing around. Thunder Rosa might have been on the back burner at some points, but look what they've done with her as well. She's now, she's the women's champion. And I'll tell you, great stuff with her and what they've done with her so far. It's been great. So they have, maybe not every star is being taken care of, and there's certain stars they could obviously put out there more. But I think in the long run, when I look at the whole roster one by one, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. I like what they're doing. I like what they're going with the direction of what they have with the talent. It works for them all together. And so to me, I just look and say, that's where I'm looking at, where I'm just looking at things, and I just think it's all fine. I think all the thought process has been very overblown. That's just me. And listen, if my fellow podcast brother want to have something to talk about, listen, I got tired of talking about Cody after 2 weeks, after WrestleMania. But when I look at AEW and I say to myself, where are we going to go with things right here? I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a problem. So there's a couple more stories I'm going to wrap up before we go ahead and move along. So I will be back around to do Impact Wrestling's Rebellion pay-per-view coming up on Saturday. It's going to be on Sunday. So we'll have that coming up. Full card going on, and a hell of a night they're going to have. This is really a good card. So start off with the Knockout Tag Team titles, Inspiration versus Influence. No more Caleb with a K, who is no longer with the promotion anymore. He has been let go. Contract expired. But also left on good terms, it looks like. So Influence for the champions, and with the whole story they've had with the Inspiration, the Influence took back the belts, and I can see a switch coming back now. I'll say Inspiration now with the whole Caleb with a K thing now done with. I think the Inspiration take the belts back. Steve Maclin versus Jay White versus Chris Sabin. This is a hell of a match. Jay White, I think, will win that match. A match that's got to be. We got two massive, really good women's matches coming up on the pay-per-view. First of all, Tasha Steelz versus Rosemary, Knockouts title. Tasha will win. But they did a nice job building that whole storyline up for Tasha and Rosemary. The Inner Realm. The Reina of the Reinas title for AAA. Deonna Purrazzo against Taya Valkyrie. Damn, we're getting that. That's just massive. I mean, but then again, Deonna Purrazzo right now, when I used to think about how Tessa Blanchard was such a highlight for the women in Impact Wrestling, Deonna Purrazzo, man, I mean, every time she's out in there doing the Champ Challenge, she just commands attention. And I remember going to Fort Lauderdale to watch her at the shows and the tapings, and she just commanded attention. Just love that woman. She's just great out there. She's just had great matches in general. When it comes to Mickie James, when it comes to Roxy, who just came on NXT tonight as Roxanne Perez, I'm hoping that Roxy does well. I'm hoping that she really pans out well, because she is excellent. The fact that, and I mentioned that last week when they signed her, the fact that NXT now has that diamond in the rough, she's already really well positioned. She's going to be great. She's great right now. And just wait until see how far she can go when they build her up some more. Because that's a girl that's going up to that main roster. Roxanne Perez, put her on that main roster. At some point, she's going to be there. She deserves to. Now, when I look at... So, I mean, I'm sorry. Deonna Purrazzo, I don't think how she can lose. But I think Taya Valkyrie... Oh, man, this is going to be tough. Yeah, I got to say Deonna Purrazzo is going to drop the belt to Taya Valkyrie. Because Taya's going to go to Mexico and defend it. And then you have Jonathan Gresham against Eddie Edwards. I'll take Gresham over Edwards. Tomohiro Ishii, the Pitbull versus JONAH. Damn. JONAH just getting these certain matches. Him with PCO, another classic with those guys last week. him and JONAH, Ishii and JONAH just should be a massive. Like JONAH does give me like the Samoa Joe vibes when I look at him. Just really has that feel. Those guys should just have a brutal match together. Strong style intensified. 8-man tag team challenge for the Impact Tag Team titles, Vaughn by Design versus To Be Determined. So we know Good Brothers will be in it. We don't know what the other teams will be in there. I'm guessing one from Honor No More, and I don't know who the other team will be. So I don't think Vaughn by Design is going to hold those belts. I don't think so. X Division title, Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin versus Mike Bailey. I'm going to say Speedball Mike Bailey wins this belt. They put a whole lot of time into him, and he's done pretty impressive so far. And I think Trey Miguel and Ace Austin, you can split them off into a singles feud, but Mike Bailey gets the win here. But then again, Mike Bailey could get the win. I don't know, Ace Austin's already been kind of trolling Mike Bailey so far, so you could see where Ace Austin and Mike Bailey will take on each other coming up. But I think Trey Miguel doesn't hold that belt after Sunday. Impact World title, Moose versus Josh Alexander. I think Josh Alexander gets his win back after Bound for Glory, though they will pay that off. I think Josh Alexander gets that belt back. He'll be champion at the end of the night. That's where I think things go. And there's been word about Bray Wyatt returning to wrestling, but anybody wants to have him will have to pay a lot of money. He's not done anything inside of a wrestling ring. He did work WrestleCon in Dallas during WrestleMania weekend, having an appearance there, but there was a Twitter post about WWE's interest in FTR. Dave Meltzer mentioned that WWE would be interested in any top AEW act right now, and AEW would be interested in any top WWE act. But we haven't seen anything right now when it comes to Bray Wyatt, and who knows where he's going to go. And what he'll get to do when he goes to a company. I'm still surprised. Well, I guess so. Impact Wrestling didn't have the money for him. But then again, how long does Bray Wyatt or Wyndham Rotunda want to wait until he gets somewhere? Because right now he could command a lot of money, but that's going to deteriorate after time. Because if he becomes less relevant, the less money he's going to get. So he could just see if he wants to continue to play the market and see what happens. You know, we'll find out. Anyway, that's the show. Thanks for listening in. I got to work the 420 Bud Bash now. 24 hours from now. I'll be in the grueling part of it, working ticket sales. Ugh. Not looking for that. I'm stressed out already as it is. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Early this week, come back this Sunday for my coverage of Impact Wrestling Rebellion. I will do that pay-per-view, and I will cover that. Oh, no, it's on Saturday. Saturday the 23rd. So Saturday night, WrestlingIsReal.com. Look for an episode from me to cover Impact Wrestling Rebellion. We will do that right here on the next Wrestling Is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.